Right now is a phenomenal time to do some very deep healing on an emotional, physical, and spiritual level. And only one thing is required. It's the willingness to be your own loving parent to your inner child, your inner family, which are these split off parts of your psyche, parts that got traumatized, and they still echo on, they reverberate in your mind and in your emotional body. That's what gets triggered when you're moving through your life. Now, if you're watching this, you probably have been healing for some time. You're not unfamiliar with your inner child or that type of work of bringing a loving parental adult presence to these wounded parts. But I believe we're at a tipping point where you've gained enough presence, you've developed enough compassion for yourself, enough unconditional love, whereby these inner child parts are now trusting you more than ever before. And as they trust you more and more, the more they're willing to come up and be seen and be healed. And so an acceleration is taking place where it's just like boom, 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 what's next? Give me more, let's go. More and more this healing is happening. And the stronger you grow and your confidence to be a loving parent to these parts, no matter what happens to you in life. So it becomes this positive feedback loop. And then you see, you can trust your healing journey, that it's actually, whatever happens in life is serving you, even if it's uncomfortable and inconvenient, it's bringing something up to be healed. 1 second. So you lean in more and more. It's like you no longer need to avoid discomfort. Before, maybe it was like, well, how long is this healing going to take? There was an impatience about it. A feeling of like, wow, I got to just keep doing this. Is it even doing anything? It's just endless. I clear something and then I get triggered. A day later, hours later, and I'm back in it again. I'm back in this wounded place. What happened? I feel like maybe I was better off before I even started facing these traumas inside. That we're coming out of that phase because you've just grown so much in your presence, in your power to give that unconditional love to your inner child. So it's coming up quick now. It's moving through you. A deeper and deeper healing has taken place. As an example, in my own life, I just completed a yoga teacher training this past weekend. We had our graduation on Sunday, this past Sunday. At the same time, I was scheduled, it was my turn to teach. We each had to teach a class in front of everybody, in front of the group that belonged in this training. And I went on the last day, not knowing that we were also going to have the graduation before that. That was kind of thrown in later. So it was a big day. It was a busy day. We met in a park. We had this nice potluck, but I felt strange, probably because I knew I was going to have to get up in front of everybody. And I felt lonely inside and wishing I could just be more open. Then I led my class, and it was great, despite feeling in the moment like this is going terribly. I'm all over the place. I'm wild with my energy. Still, the feedback I got was overwhelmingly positive. And the really cool thing is that they could tell, like, and this is like what my dream has always been, is to just be authentic. And that was the feedback that I got. The reflection was that, wow, that felt authentic. It felt like you are marching to the beat of your own drum. And I say all that not to brag, but to say it was a positive day. Yet when I got home, suddenly I felt very sad. And like, what's going on? Maybe it was because the class is over and it was something regular in my life, and now that's gone, and I'm not going to see these people. And weirdly, I was just feeling sort of rejected. That's just what was coming up. And I sat on the couch with it, and I started to have this dialogue with what would seem like my inner child. And it was saying like, it's just, I hate myself, and nobody's ever going to love me, and I don't have any friends. And so I just stayed in the conversation. That's all I needed to do was like, I'm staying in this. So I kept saying, it was validating his feelings. It's okay. That totally makes sense. That's human. Everybody feels that way from time to time. I'm here. I'm not going to leave you. There's no place I'd rather be. And then I just kept doing that. And there was resistance and continuing to just be upset. And, like, well, I still, you like me, but nobody else does. But I hung in there, and I just was like, rinse and repeat. No, it's okay. I'm here. This is where I want to be, right here with you. And finally, the tears just started to flow. And I had this release. And it was like, I felt so much better after. Because this part of me had been seen. And I could see, wow, it does take dedication. It takes this calm, confident persistence, which I'm sure you have. And it's just applying that to your own, these wounded parts. That's all they're looking for, is that to be seen and that validation. And many of us just didn't get that at some key times in our childhood. And that's what resulted in these traumas. Maybe a parent was stressed out and they just didn't have time, or they didn't have the wherewithal, that their parents didn't do that with them, and they're traumatized. So they weren't able to bring that sort of patience and unconditional love to you. So you're giving this to yourself. And that persistence, though, is what pays off. And the more that you do this, the more that comes up for healing. Because the inner child is just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Of course, you don't hear that in your head, but that's I think the way it works is that the more the inner child is trusting, it's like the more it's willing to just come out of the shadows and bring these things up to be healed. And then you see that life is actually trying to heal you, and you begin to trust the process. And then there's nothing really that needs to be avoided, because it's like, oh, here's the next thing that's ready to be healed. And there's an excitement, there's a passion about it. Okay, awesome. Instead of like, why is this happening, and feeling like a victim, it's like, yes, even though this is uncomfortable, even though this is inconvenient, this is good, because this is something that is trying to be healed. And the more that we get these trauma imprints out of our body, just by witnessing them, by allowing these feelings to be expressed, the calmer we become, the calmer our minds become, the more we can relax into our being and be our true selves and bring that authenticity forward, not feeling afraid or ashamed or so worried about what other people will think. I just was in an acting class last night and I discovered I kept feeling really hurt inside and needy. And I can just sense like this is the next thing wanting to heal. I have so much shame around saying, or even admitting to myself, that I feel so needy or that I feel so hurt and rejected. Probably because that got shamed growing up. And so for me, I'm like, well, this is the next thing. It's so clear. I'm going to own this and just start to really speak to it. And I was speaking to it in this class of mine and being vulnerable, sharing about it. And then when I felt it too. It wasn't just talking about it. I felt it. It felt so raw. I felt like that little child. I wasn't in my like adult healthy self. And I was also judging myself a lot, like, what's wrong with me? Get out, snap out of it. This is embarrassing. On my drive home, I had a new moment where the inner child came up, and it was like so clear to me. It was just like feeling so sad about being so needy and not having certain needs met in childhood. Mainly this need to have compassion, to be understood, to be seen. These are more subtle emotional needs. And there was just a sadness, like, man, I had to suppress those needs. Like, that's like the opposite of life-giving. It's dehumanizing. And it was such a deep sadness. It's like I cried it out, and that was it. And it was just like moving on. So my point is that you can trust. Life will show you what is the next thing that wants to be healed. Maybe it's some repressed anger of your older part of you, a teenager part of you. And that anger did not get expressed growing up. Or maybe it's a very young, innocent, scared child aspect. But it will just keep one after the other happening. And this healing that is taking place as it accelerates is going to bring you more into a calm state within yourself. This is what actually allows you to then awaken, to have that spiritual transformation. But as long as the mind is noisy and there's all this self-hatred and critical thoughts from these traumas that are stuck in the body, that spiritual awakening is on hold. So it's in our best interest to put down the distractions and to just make a healing the priority. So I hope you found this video helpful. I'm going to leave it there. And I hope you have an amazing evening. Peace and much love.